Hi everybody, it's MisspelledTree here. Just doing a little video to answer one of the most commonly asked questions on my channel, which is what is a dakka? I talk about a dakka quite a lot in my videos. If you've been watching my old games, you will almost certainly have run into it. A dakka is just a withdrawn offence, which means that instead of taking the ball and moving forward straight away, you're going to take the ball and move backwards with it. And there are a few reasons to do this. It's a reasons that tend to all be things that elves would want to do. The single biggest reason is it reduces the number of hits that you take on a drive, because if you are immediately engaging with your opponent, that's more turns that they've got to base you up, to hit your players, and to potentially remove them. And the other reason you might do it is actually to get some SPP, some star player points, because it generally gives you a chance to do some vanity passing before your opponent catches up to your position. It is called the dakka because it was, I guess, popularized. I don't know if he actually came up with it, by a coach who played on Fumble, which is another platform for playing Blood Bowl online, called Matt Dakka. So it was, I guess, named after him in the community. We're playing High Elves in this matchup against Orcs. This was a game from the CCL, the Champions Ladder, which is the main open ladder league. So it's not a perfect dakka I'm going to show you, but it's just a dakka that I used recently, which I think illustrates the strengths of it and why it can be an effective choice. So you'll see right away I've lined up with players that have dodge on the line, because that way, however they defend, even if they get a perfect defense, we're going to have that dodge skill to help dodge away. And the first thing we're doing is just withdrawing players who don't need to roll any dice to save positions. I went for the pickup here now because if I start moving these players back and then fail the pickup, then the board is exposed. So I moved these ones because they were all irrelevant to the action, but I kept these ones here while I did the pickup just so I could have it screened in case it goes, in case the pickup goes wrong. Because obviously the pickup, you're going to have to put a team reader onto that, and you know that before you start. You could throw a vanity pass here. I played it cautious because I wanted to make sure I got all these things back first, and the vanity pass could fail. And so after that, I am leaving the one dice roll we've got to do for the dodge until last. And so right away, we've established a position on turn one where our opponent won't get to hit us. In general, with elves, it's obviously a very good rule of thumb to be saying, let's try not to take hits as much as possible. If you can restrict your opponent to one blitz per turn, that's generally what you'd love to be able to do. Not always possible in practice. But again, the idea of the dakka here is this first turn and hopefully the second turn, we're going to avoid taking any hits at all. My opponent is pushing forward. You'll see different responses to the dakkas. Some coaches will just drop a line in the middle of the pitch, which can be quite an effective defense because at some point you're going to have to bring the ball forward. But in this instance, they're not doing that. Blood Bowl Nut asks, how do you beat a dakka? There's no single way that's always going to beat it, but things that can be difficult to play against, columns defense, which has already been suggested in chat by Raven. If you've got a team with a lot of strength and has some stand firm, I think quite an effective strategy can be to play some stand firm on the edges of your formation. I think one thing which we're going to see in this game the opponent doesn't do, I do think using covering the full width of the pitch with your defense is really important, because you need to not leave gaps for your opponent to go through. Because when you withdraw this way, to talk about one of the big risks of the dakka, the big risk of the dakka, one of its biggest downsides is if something goes wrong for me on this drive, it goes wrong very close to my end zone. And so very likely if something goes wrong, my opponent's going to score. But that's one of the big risks. And I think why I think I would like, with a lot of strong teams like Orcs, I would like doing a wide defense that covers the whole width of the pitch and makes me push into an uncomfortable position, and also uses the strength advantage you have, because it's not easy for me with strength 3 elves to just punch through this team that has all this guard and mighty blow. But again, that's one of the reasons I liked the dakka in this matchup is look at the amount of mighty blow on this team. We've got 4 mighty blow we're up against. I don't want to be hit by that. As much as I can avoid being hit by that, I would like to. I have no bench for this game as well, so I've only got 11 players, so every player lost is going to hurt. So this is what I talk about when I say width is important, because my opponent hasn't covered the outside squares. And so on this turn, as you're going to see right away here, sometimes I like to try and stay back even longer than this. But because they've advanced to here and given me a chance to go up the sides, I'm going to take advantage of that and go up the sides. Because if I don't do it this turn, they might go into a wider position next turn, and then I'll have trickier options, maybe trying to look for blocks on the Black Orcs who are strength 4, where I need to get assists on them, that are much more complicated. And because they've left width on both sides this time, what I chose to do is to send one player on this side, so you've got an immediate breakthrough point on this side. I didn't do it until after the blitz, which is bad. I should have done this before doing the blitz. Oh, I know I didn't, because I actually rolled a GFI here as well. So we've created a breakthrough point here on the defense, so now they've got to react to the fact that we've got some space here on the sideline. But to stop them from bringing all of the orcs over to this side, I was also able to say, position this player on this side. I took one GFI here just because it is means that they can't blitz from the top and push him onto another block. And why do the pitches have goalposts? There are no kicks or points. That kicks is actually one of the ways Blood Bowl that a game can be decided in a knockout competition. If a game is a draw, there is a mechanism for a penalty shootout at the end of the game. Okay, so unfortunately for me, the very first hit of the game I did take was a casualty and a niggling injury. We did hang this player up to be hit, so we can't complain that it got hit. It's still a bit unlucky that the first hit you take in the game, even with Mighty Blow, is a casualty, and then a bad casualty too. It was a niggle. We used the apothecary, because even to remove a player, even with armor 7 on Mighty Blow, is less than 50-50. But yes, we did sacrifice that player there. But the consequence of that is the Orcs are still have to left a group of their players on this side of the pitch because they were worrying about the threat on this side. So now we're going to be able to force our way through this side, because they were not, they didn't double screen here. So we have a gap where if we just get the one push, we can run straight through that gap. And this is like the key turn on a dakka is always a turn when you're trying to push the ball through the defense. At some point, you're going to have to push the ball through the defense. And there's always going to be at least a couple of dice on that, unless your opponent really isn't doing anything. Here, we've rolled a block where any result other than double skulls was fine. And we've rolled one push and one GFI, and then we have rolled that catch. So we still had to roll 3 2+s, even with our opponent leaving us some opportunities. Sorry about that. I'm getting stuck in the menu for a second there. But then once we had that position secure, we were able to do a 1 dice block here, dodge this up, and now, as you will see, we have a reasonably solid screen on the board. This was actually quite a dangerous dakka because our opponent has a wizard. That was our fault they have a wizard, because we took a wizard as the overdog in this matchup, which is not something I would generally recommend. I had my reasons. But yeah, so we're playing the dakka into a wizard is very risky, and you need your screens to be strong. And in this case, we've managed to get a double screen to discourage them from just using the wizard to take the ball off you. But immediately in this position, as you can see, because we were able to distract some of their team over here, because we were able to make this breakthrough, we've got now a full cohort of players who can move up the pitch together. And you can see how the dakka has done what it needed to do. Everything that happens from here, I'll show the rest of the drive, but it's sort of not the integral sort of part of the dakka. The dakka was what we just did, was starting deep, drawing our opponent forward, and then once they'd come forward and we saw an opportunity to go through, push through. That said, another thing that you're hoping might be possible with the dakka is to try to stall to turn 8. So we're going to try to stall to turn 8 here, which, as you will see, is not totally straightforward. even after drawing them on like this. So immediately before rolling any dice, just getting that ball as far away as we can. It's not completely safe here. They can still hit it, so we need at least one dodge to succeed. Luckily for us, we didn't roll that 1 in 36 fail state, so we were able to cover the ball. Again, doing the dodges with the players who have dodge first, trying to do the safe moves first, which is always a good idea whether you're doing a dakka or not. And what we're trying to do now is get as many bodies forward and relevant as we can, to give ourselves the best chance of stalling this out to turn 8. I actually think with hindsight, I should have just dodged this player. I shouldn't have taken his hit, because then we could have got these two linemen involved quicker. Took those GFIs at the end of the turn because we hadn't used a reroll, and it gave us a chance to improve our screen again. I sort of want to fast forward these turns, but I think that's just me being impatient. I should leave them to happen, so if people want to see how this drive plays out when they're watching it, they can see exactly what happened. I think this is a really nice choice of blitz from our opponent. It forces a group of our players into quite an uncomfortable spot. If I'm being totally truthful, with the wizard in play for my opponent at this point, I was asking myself, are we really going to be able to stall it out to turn 8 here? I definitely had some doubts around now about whether it was going to be possible, but I did decide to push my luck in the end. This square here, you'll often hear me and some other streamers refer to as the stall square. We call it that because even if you do get hit in this square, the ball can't scatter off the pitch. If you get powered here, the ball can only scatter to a square inside the pitch. So you lean on that square sometimes, especially with elves, where you might think, well, even if we get sacked, we're going to be good at recovering the ball. It's good to just think 2 squares in from the sideline on either side means if the worst happens, maybe we'll still have a chance to recover it next turn. So we were able to rebuild our screen there, and we did do what we probably should have done last turn and just dodge these linemen out to this side and get them moving up the pitch. So we now have, I've already got in the back of my mind that I'm expecting this position to collapse. Like, I don't think I'm going to be able to stay here until the end of the game. So by moving these up now, I'm hoping that by turn 8, because I've got 2 more turns left, I'll be able to get them into a relevant spot. Now, this was pretty sad. I've been taking, I think, just literally 1 hit per turn since after turn 2. So we've had, 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. We've already had 1 casualty that was a perm. Unfortunately, we've already then got another death on a blodger as well. It wasn't even a tackle hit. So we were a little bit unlucky on our injury dice in this situation. But on the flip side, we also haven't failed any of our crucial 2+ rolls. So we've been able to do the most important thing, which is get into our strong dakka position. I thought this was nice from our opponent, putting tackle on the ball, putting pressure on this. But perhaps to talk about the other side of the dakka and how you defend the dakka, I think maybe in 2 key moments of the drive, our opponent has made one mistake. And I think that is, if you're defending the dakka, the most important thing I could say is just always make sure both sides are covered. And I said that at the beginning when we did the breakthrough turn, and I said why I think that's important. But if you look at it again here, what I'm about to do is risky, and I wouldn't say that it was a decision I took lightly. I did really think about just scoring here, taking the 2+ dodge and scoring. But I felt like my odds of winning the game were going to be much lower if I scored here, because I thought my opponent with the wizard would have a good chance of scoring 2 turns. So I did push my luck here and go for an extra stall. And the only reason that stall is possible is because there's a space over here and elves are fast. And because I moved these linemen up, which means I'm going to be able to complete my screen. So again, dodging with dodge to start off with. This was a really scary dodge. In fact, I think I said before taking this dodge, I will score and not take this pass if this dodge triggers the dodge reroll because it is on tackle. So I think I said at the time I will score if I fail this, but I didn't fail it. So then I pushed my luck and got the ball over here. So yeah, if you're defending the dakka, I think that's definitely the single most important thing I could say to you is always make sure both sides are covered because elves are going to keep switching sides on you whenever they can. And it's probably a good lesson, not just against a dakka, it's just against elf teams in general. Elves want to switch sides because they're generally going to be faster than you, unless you're also playing elves. Or humans. Humans are very fast. So we've been able to get into this position here on turn 7 of our drives. So we've got turn 8 coming up. And even with the wizard here, there was not an easy way for them to get to the ball. Not even a fireball was going to get to this. So the dakka has basically been successful. They've given up trying to hit the ball. They're going to hit another of our players. It is the armor 6-1. It is another POW. But luckily for us, unlike those other ones, Jingo turned out to be a little bit tougher. And I think I just took one blitz here. I still had the reroll, so I did take the blitz here. Only take the ones with block because then only 4 skulls is going to knock things off course. And I walked in for the score. So that was a dakka. Enjoy that good high elf chuckle. Best thing about playing high elves is those laughs the players do. So yeah, that was a dakka. As I said at the start of the video, it's the most commonly asked question I think I get while I'm playing, probably because I use a dakka too often, is people saying, what's a dakka when I say I'm going to do a dakka? So hopefully that's a helpful video for people. If you are watching this on YouTube and you have any questions, if there's anything that you would like to know more about, do drop a comment in the comment section below. I will try to answer any questions you've got. And if you are enjoying the content, I'd love it if you could leave a like and subscribe.